Imagine finding a tiny shop in your neighborhood that no one else notices, a shop that sells cupcakes with magic powers. Sounds amazing, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to Ellie. One sunny afternoon, Ellie was walking home from school when she spotted something unusual. Tucked between the bookstore and the flower shop was a tiny door she'd never noticed before. It was painted bright purple with sparkly golden swirls, and above it, a small wooden sign read, "The Magic Cupcake Shop." Ellie's eyes sparkled with curiosity. A magic cupcake shop, she thought. She pushed the door open, and ding-a-ling. A tiny bell jingled as she stepped inside. The shop was small but filled with the most delicious smell she had ever sniffed. Shelves lined the walls, and each shelf was stacked with cupcakes in every color and size imaginable. They glowed, shimmered, and even sparkled. Behind the counter stood an older woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. Her name tag read, Mrs. Marigold. She winked at Ellie and said, "Every cupcake here holds a little magic. Pick the one that feels right for you." Ellie's hand hovered over the cupcakes, her fingers tingling with excitement. Finally, she picked a silver cupcake with tiny stars twinkling on its frosting. Mrs. Marigold smiled knowingly and said, "Ah, the invisible icing. A good choice for a first-timer." Ellie took a bite, and poof! She disappeared. She looked at her hands, but they were gone. "Whoa!" Ellie gasped, her voice echoing in the empty shop. Mrs. Marigold chuckled and handed Ellie a small mirror. She couldn't see herself at all. Ellie ran outside, invisible and giggling, and saw a little boy struggling to retrieve his soccer ball from a tall tree. Without hesitation, she climbed up the tree and tossed the ball down. The boy looked around, confused, but Ellie whispered, "You're welcome," and hurried away, still invisible. Ellie couldn't stop thinking about the shop. The very next day, she returned. This time, she chose a bright blue cupcake with fluffy white frosting that looked like clouds. Mrs. Marigold said, "Ah, the soaring swirl. This one's truly uplifting." Ellie took a bite, and instantly, she felt light as a feather. Her feet lifted off the ground. She was flying. Ellie zoomed through the sky, laughing and twirling in the clouds. She could see her whole neighborhood below her, tiny houses, cars, and people waving at her. While flying, Ellie spotted a puppy stuck on a rooftop. Using her new flying powers, she swooped down, scooped up the scared pup, and gently brought it to safety. The puppy barked happily, and Ellie waved before soaring back into the sky. The next week, Ellie decided to try a new cupcake. This time, she picked a red cupcake with golden sprinkles. Mrs. Marigold smiled proudly and said, "The Power Puff. It'll make you as strong as a superhero." Ellie's first bite made her feel a warm, tingling sensation in her muscles. She felt like she could lift anything. She ran outside to test her strength and saw a delivery truck stuck in a ditch. The driver was scratching his head, unsure of how to move it. Ellie walked over, dug her feet into the ground, and with one mighty push, lifted the truck back onto the road. The driver stared in disbelief. "How did that little girl do that?" he mumbled. Ellie just grinned and ran off before anyone could ask too many questions. Ellie's magical adventures continued. Each cupcake gave her a new power. The green cupcake gave her the ability to talk to animals. She helped a lost cat find its way home. The pink cupcake let her grow flowers instantly, and she brightened up her school garden. The golden cupcake made her super fast, and she helped an elderly neighbor cross the street before the light changed. Ellie realized that these powers weren't just fun, they could be used to make her community a better place. She began visiting the shop regularly, each time choosing a cupcake to match the day's challenges. One day, Ellie noticed something unusual in the shop. A cupcake sat on the counter under a glass dome, glowing softly. She asked Mrs. Marigold, "What's that one for?" Mrs. Marigold's eyes twinkled. "That's the kindness cake. It doesn't give you powers like the others, but it spreads kindness wherever you go. It's very special." Ellie knew she had to try it. She took a small bite, and suddenly, she felt a warm glow in her chest. Everywhere she went that day, people smiled at her, and she felt an overwhelming urge to help others. She made cards for her teachers, picked up litter in the park, and even helped her little brother with his homework without being asked. By the end of the day, Ellie realized something incredible: kindness was the greatest magic of all. As the years went by, Ellie visited the Magic Cupcake Shop again and again. Each cupcake brought new adventures and new ways to help her community. She became known as the girl who could fix anything, help anyone, and make everyone smile. One day, when Ellie was much older, she returned to the shop, but it was gone. The purple door, the sparkling sign, everything had disappeared. But Ellie didn't feel sad. She knew the magic wasn't in the cupcakes, it was in the way she chose to use them. And from that day on, Ellie kept spreading magic wherever she went, reminding everyone that even the smallest acts of kindness could make a big difference. Thanks for watching the Magic Cupcake Shop. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with your friends. See you next time for another magical adventure.